Okay, so we introduced our model that has households as one of the sectors. Um, their job is that they own factors of production like land, labour, and capital, and they supply them to firms in exchange for a factor income. And we have firms whose job is to hire factor incomes and produce goods and services, which they then sell to households. But what we said is that, in reality, the world is a bit more complex than that because households they don't actually spend all their income. So we put our households here. Oops. Then what we know is that, and here are our firms. We said that an income, factor incomes come around to households. I think I put it on the top last time, but anyway, never mind, doesn't matter. Factor incomes come around to households. What we said is that in the original model, all households do is they spend, they consume all that income. But in reality, we know that that's not realistic. If I give you some money, there are a variety of things that you might do with it, other than spend it on UK firms' goods and services. So one thing you might decide to do is you might decide to save it. One thing that you'll have to do is you'll have to pay tax on some of that income. And one thing, obviously, you might choose to do is, unless you like eating potatoes and turnips, you might want to spend it on goods from other countries. You might want to buy imports. These are domestic firms over here. So alternatively, you might spend money on imports. And now we've got a problem. Because let's suppose that firms pay, it doesn't really matter, £500 million worth of income. Some of that's saved, some of it goes to the government in the form of tax, some of it's spent on imports. Maybe only 300 million comes back to the firms. So now they're in trouble because they've paid £500 million of the factor incomes and they've only got £300 million back in exchange for the goods and services they produce. They haven't sold them all. So what will happen is they'll have to cut back. So instead of, maybe they can now only pay £300 million worth of factor incomes to households. But again, households don't spend all of that 300 because some of it's saved, some of it goes to the government in the form of tax. Maybe they now only spend 200, and so on. So we've got a big problem here, or we would have, except for the fact that, of course, in reality, UK firms don't get all of their demand from UK households. So this demand here, consumption, that's one part of UK firms. One part of UK firms' demand, but they get demand from other places. One source of demand is from consumers from other countries. Large numbers of UK firms, they export goods and services. So exports, which we'll abbreviate with X, and imports with M, because E and I have too many other things that they stand for in economics. Firms get also demand from other firms for capital goods. So firms in engineering and so on, most of their demand is coming from other firms, rather than from households. And we'll call that investment. And likewise, some firms, a lot of firms get demand from the government. If you take the health service, that's entirely government funded, and that spends a hell of a lot of money on the private sector, buying drugs, pharmaceuticals, bandages, capital equipment, and so on and so forth. So we've also got over here, I should have left more space, but government spending. So when the government builds, so we've got a stupid railway being built from London to Birmingham. The government doesn't build it itself. The government uses tax revenue and then contracts private sector firms, to build that railway. So, what difference does this make? The answer is that the model can now, the model can still be in equilibrium, like the original one was. So before we introduced any of these injections and withdrawals, and these are our injections into the circular flow of income, and these are our withdrawals, or if you prefer, leakages. The model had been in equilibrium. Before any of that was there, firms paid factor incomes to household in exchange for factors of production. Households spent money on firms in exchange for goods and services, and the model was always in equilibrium because there was nothing coming in and nothing going out. So it should be fairly clear then that provided what is going out is equal to what is coming in, then the model will still be stable. It will still be in equilibrium. So that's our that's our equilibrium condition. Provided that withdrawals, so if we add up savings and tax and imports, are equal to injections, which are investment plus government spending plus exports, then the model will be in equilibrium. So that's our equilibrium condition, injections equal withdrawals. Another way of seeing that is to say that what's going on here is that firms are producing a certain amount of goods and services, and households are buying those. So the alternative way is saying, well, basically what we've got is a situation where aggregate demand, the total demand from households and from other sectors, is equal to the total level of supply. So an alternative condition for equilibrium that we'll come to fairly shortly is total demand, aggregate demand, equals total supply. But for now, it's this idea that if injections into the circular flow of income, investment plus government spending plus exports, are equal to withdrawals from them, then the model is in equilibrium, the economy will be stable. GDP will be neither rising nor falling, hence equilibrium. And in a minute, we'll come on to look at what happens if they're not equal.